Hey kids, welcome back to another video. I think we're almost done with the videos and we'll be back here. If everything goes really well on Sunday, we can be here in person, we can hang out together and we can go through the Bible face to face rather than through a video screen. But here, for the last video that I can think that we're gonna do, we might have a few more, but for this one, I wanted to go back a little bit in the life of David. So up to this point, we've been working through one event after the other in kind of the timeline of the Bible to this point. And everything's been in chronological order, which means it's one thing's happening after the other. But today, we want to go back a little bit. I want to go back to another psalm that David wrote. And this is going to be Psalm 103. And we talked about two psalms already. We talked about Psalm 1 and how it compare and contrast and looked at the differences between the righteous and the wicked. And then we looked at Psalm 23, which talked about how God is our great shepherd. And here in Psalm 103, David is going to be reflecting on how great God is. It's titled in my Bible, The Forgiving God. And David's going to go through and he's going to spend 22 verses talking about how great God is for forgiving sin. So go ahead and take a moment. I know it's 22 verses. It's a little bit bigger than what we've been reading. But I want you guys to read all 22 verses and then we'll come right back. And I want you guys to read all 22 because the beginning verses and the end verses play into one another. So go ahead and do that and we'll be right back. All right, kids, I hope you guys read all of that. I hope you read the 22 verses because there's so much in here that in this short little video we're not going to be able to get to. But here I want to talk about a couple of things. The first one is the beginning and the end. David opens this by saying, "My soul blesses the Lord." My soul blesses the Lord. And David here isn't talking about just my words bless the Lord or some of my actions bless the Lord, but my soul. Everything about who I am blesses the Lord, gives praise to God. And then at the end of verse 22 here again, he says, "Bless the Lord, all his works, in all the places where he rules. My soul blesses the Lord." You see, David understood how great God was to the point where when he's writing all of this down, he wants to clearly communicate to everybody who's reading this, to the whole nation of Israel, that there is a God who deserves the praise and the honor of everything about who we are. There isn't one bit of our body, of our being, of our actions, of our thoughts that shouldn't be blessing God. Everything should be for Him. Now, as we go through this, we're going to talk about our three questions. What does this teach us about God, about people, and about Jesus? So what does this teach us about God? Well, the whole thing here is talking about the forgiving God. The fact that God has power over everything and ultimately He chooses to forgive sin. Friends, as we've gone through the Bible, we see how the Israelites, how Adam and Eve, how Moses, how everybody up to this point has sinned against God and is deserving punishment. But every time we see that God forgives, He'll punish. He'll make sure that we know and that we have to pay the consequences of our sin, but He always forgives. He doesn't sever the relationship. He doesn't say, well, you sinned one time, so you can't be with me for eternity. He says, no, even though you sin, I will forgive that sin and restore your relationship with me. So what does this teach us about people? Well, it's kind of the exact opposite. This whole psalm here is talking about how great God is, and in comparison, how terrible we are. How, friends, there's nothing that we can do to earn the forgiveness ourselves. We can't get forgiveness of our sin. And Psalm 103 here, David is helping us understand that the sin that we have can't be overcome on our own. We have to have a God who loves and cares for us and forgives for us. And this leads us to our last point. What does this teach us about Jesus? Well, friends, here, David isn't just talking about the immediate forgiveness. He's not talking about, well, you took a cookie before dinner and you get punished. You go to your room for 10 minutes and then you come back out and you ask for forgiveness and your parents give it to you. That's not the kind of forgiveness here that's being talked about. There's part of that, But the greater forgiveness here is that God is forgiving sin. He is forgiving sin, and that's a bigger picture going on. Because sin is forgiven here, but the point where sin was paid for happens when Jesus dies on the cross. Whenever the Bible talks about the greatness of God and the eternal gift of God, on the one hand, it's God giving that gift, God providing that gift, God setting the stage so that gift can be given. But the gift is ultimately Jesus. It is Jesus' life, death, and resurrection that paid the penalty. And that's here what David is looking forward to. Now, David didn't know who this Jesus was going to be. He didn't know that somewhere down his line that there was going to be the Son of God that was going to come to this earth and be born and ultimately to die. But friends, David knew that there was a God who had a plan in place. And we have the great position here to have the entire Bible. Friends, we know how the story ends. It ends really good, by the way. David only had a little bit. But we're able to look back and we're able to see what David writes here is talking about Jesus. David's words here are looking forward to Jesus. Just like last Sunday we talked about the covenant, the Davidic covenant that says that a king will rule who's coming from David's line. Well, David just thought that was one of his grandsons or his great-grandson. He didn't know that that was going to be Jesus. But we're able to look back and know that, yes, Jesus came from the line of David. And the promise that was given to David back in 2 Samuel is fulfilled in Jesus. And here, this promise, this knowledge of a forgiving God in Psalm 103, we know is looking forward to Jesus. So friends, my encouragement this week is that you guys think about that. Think about the fact that we have a God who forgives, who wants to forgive, who loves us enough to send his son to die. Friends, that is the God who loves you and me. That is the God who wants a personal relationship with you and me. Think about that. Think about the fact that you've got a God who loves you. If you guys want a relationship with him, you want to know how to start that, and you know that you've sinned and you've messed up and you want to turn back to him and you want to live your life for Jesus, talk to your parents and talk to me. Would love to talk with you guys about that. All right. I will see you guys hopefully very, very soon. We're going to have another video later this week, probably Friday or Saturday. That's going to give you some guidelines as to how Sunday morning's going to look. So I'll see you guys then.